Welcome, everybody, once again, and this is our final episode here of Murder and Vengeance in the Middle Ages. So far, we've seen how different civilizations in this vast period that is the medieval period, the Middle Ages, how different cultures, different societies dealt with vengeance. If somebody killed my cousin, well, somebody made sure from my family or I that I would go there and take my revenge or even try to settle the dispute with proper compensation in a public display of shaking hands and suppose that everything is normal. This system did not work at all times, but still, changing times brought different methods to just cut the chain of endless violence throughout these societies. So far, as Europe moved toward stronger kingdoms and centralized justice, old customs of revenge began to fade, but not without resistance. So today we look at stories of mercy, negotiation, and the gradual birth of the modern legal system, from noble courts to village decisions. Welcome, and let's get going. In the shadows of the towering Alps, high in the Val d'Aosta Vertosan Valley, a grim drama unfolded in 1347 that laid bare the medieval struggle between honor, family, and justice. Two brothers, Perren and Jean, sons of Blanqchet from the humble village of Serella, stood before the lords of Avis, their fate hanging in the balance. In the family's eyes, they had acted to protect their honor. In the eyes of the law, they were murderers. Their crime, drowning their sister Babel in the icy waters of the twin Lake Ziuls, a remote spot toward the Gran San Bernardo Pass. This wasn't a tale of malice or betrayal, but one of desperate loyalty to family pride in a world where shame could destroy a lineage. The Lord's judgment, tempered by mercy, reveals a society at a crossroads where old codes of vengeance clashed with emerging ideals of communal justice. The Val d'Aosta, a narrow corridor of castles and villages nestled between snow-capped peaks, was a feudal patchwork in 1347, governed by noble families like the Lords of Avis under the loose authority of the House of Savoy. The Blanqchet brothers' story began with their sister Babel, a woman marked by her crimes. Branded as a thief the previous year, her ear sliced off as a public warning, she had become a pariah. In medieval society, a woman's misdeeds cast a long shadow over her kin, especially in a close-knit valley where reputations were as vital as livestock. Babel's repeated escapes from confinement and her relentless thefts from neighbors threatened to bring ruin to the Blanqchet name. Their father, fearing the lords would execute her in a public spectacle, perhaps by hanging, a shameful end, sent Perren and Jean to remove her from the village of Serella. Their solution was brutal. They lured Babel to the desolate twin lakes and drowned her, believing, as they later confessed, that they were not doing wrong. To them, this was a grim act of honor, sparing their family the disgrace of a public execution. The brothers' confession came freely at first, offered in the stone-walled prison of Avis's castle, but it was later confirmed under torture, a common practice in medieval courts to ensure truth, although, as we know, if we torture someone, they will tell you everything you want to hear. Their explanation revealed how crucial honor was in the Val d'Aosta communities. A family's reputation depended on each member's behavior, and Babel's thefts threatened not only disgrace, but also financial ruin and social exclusion. The lords of Avis, probably from the powerful Davis family that had ruled the valley since the 1100s, were caught in a tough spot. Local laws, shaped by Count Amadeus VI's reforms, demanded execution for murder, signaling that such crimes hurt the whole community. not just the victim's family. But the Lord's paused, cautious about stirring up trouble in a region where vendettas or faida could easily escalate into endless cycles of revenge. Instead of a swift execution, the Lords convened a council of 13 nobles from the valley, a practice rooted in Germanic and Lombard tradition of collective judgment, seen earlier in codes like the Edict of Rothari of 1643 AD. This assembly, likely drawn from local landholders and knights, reviewed the case with care. They took into account the brothers' simplicity, meaning either their lack of evil intent or their simple-mindedness as villagers unfamiliar with legal complexities. The council's recommendations were striking. Spare the lives of Perren and Jean. To kill them, they argued, would be inhumane, given the absence of hatred or treachery in their act. The lords agreed, imposing a fine of 100 lire, a crushing sum equivalent to the price of 100 cows, roughly 1,000 to 2,000 Florentine florins, as a cow fetched 1 to 2 lire in the contemporary markets. This penalty crippled the Blanqchet family financially but preserved their lives and the valley's fragile peace. The Lord's closing remark, "These things happen." The gesture, the killing, wasn't cold-hearted, but pragmatic, acknowledging that honor-driven violence was a fact of life in 1347. This case reflects a pivotal shift in the 14th centuries. In the Val d'Aosta, under the Savoy's influence, justice was becoming a communal matter, not just a private feud. The Lord's decision to fine rather than execute aligns with Savoyard efforts to centralize authority, as seen in Amadeus VI's 1340s edicts that empowered lords to prosecute murder as a public offense. Yet the mercy shown to Perren and Jean echoes older customs, where intent and context soften rigid statutes. A parallel case in nearby Piedmont in 1345 saw a man fined for killing a thief to protect his village, with the Lord citing communal welfare over punishment. The Black Death, sweeping through Europe in 1347 to 1351, may have further shaped this leniency, as depopulated regions like the Val d'Aosta prioritized stability over retribution. Honor remained the heartbeat of the story. Perren and Jean killed to shield their family from disgrace, just as the Lord spared them to honor the community's sense of fairness. In the Val d'Aosta, where castles like Avis stood as symbols of noble power, justice was still a negotiation between family pride and public order. The Lord's decision didn't erase Babel's death or the Blanqchet's shame, but it kept the valley from fracturing into further faida. Today we might see their act as monstrous, but to them it was a desperate bid to protect what mattered most: honor. The small, stark case in a remote alpine valley reveals a world where justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about healing the wounds violence left behind, balancing the scales of blood and pride in a society clinging to its ancient codes. It is also a window into the disparities at the time, where the value of a woman or the sister was somehow valued less in order to restore the fractured honor of the family and keep the society closed. Throughout all these stories, honor remains the central thread. For honor, you kill. For honor, you pay. For honor, you accept compensation or refuse and kill again. For centuries, honor was fundamental, one of the most important values of life. Today, honor is largely irrelevant. We no longer kill to defend it, and we're better off for that. But to our ancestors who lived by this code, we would seem very strange people indeed. What we explored is not just a tale of blood and revenge, but a story about the very foundation of how societies try to hold themselves together. In the Middle Ages, murder was woven into the fabric of life, not just a crime, but a challenge to honor, family, and community. Justice wasn't delivered by distant judges or faceless states. It was a raw personal negotiation, sometimes violent, sometimes merciful, but always about restoring balance. Over the century, this world gave way to something very different: centralized authority, written laws, and state administered justice. The idea that murder is an offense against the entire community, not just a family, slowly took hold. Today, we lock killers away, not because their victims' family demand it, but because society demands safety and fairness for all. We imprison for safety, to protect society, for fairness, to uphold a shared moral code, and crucially for punishment, to make the guilty pay a price for their actions. Yet, even now, the echoes of those old systems remain in our need for justice, our sense of honor, and sometimes our thirst for revenge. Understanding where we come from helps us appreciate how far we've come and reminds us that justice is not just about punishment, but about healing the wounds violence leaves behind. From blood feuds to state courts, the journey of justice is long and complex. While we've come far from swords and payoffs, echoes of medieval honor and revenge still shape our world. I want to thank you very much for joining me in this journey through history. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you want to explore more stories from the past. I will see you in the next one.